spells. Actually, I know for me, sorry, I didn't get the chance to introduce myself, actually. My name is Christian Asimadu. I'm a fourth year medical student at Wright State University. I am looking to apply to diagnostic radiology and interventional radiology. So being that said, that ERAS is going to open up tomorrow, very nervous butterfly feelings that are going on right now. So being here is a great place to, learn from my elders. So first question I just want to field to the panelists today is that since ERAS is up and opening up, what should N4s be doing right now to give them the best success in the match? And we could start from the bottom up, from whoever has an answer.
I can start. One thing that I think is really important to make sure you're doing right now is make sure you start hounding your letter of recommendation writers. That's the step that will take the longest. Take it from me, I know personal experience, it takes a long time to get those letters. I believe I asked about maybe 4 months in advance and tried to get it and a month before ERAS submission, and I ended up having all new letters for my application. Like, that's the chaos that it was. So if you haven't gotten all your letters right now, start emailing them weekly and start pounding it in. I need that letter. I need that letter. Because that's the biggest part. Because the last thing you want to do is submit your application incomplete. You can, but why would you mess up like your chances like that? I think that's just the best thing you can be doing. That's the most important thing to me right now.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that statement. Are there any other panelists that have something that they would like to add?
I agree with Dr. Taylor. This is a very arduous and convoluted process, right? So you want to make sure, and time is not on your side, right? It's a very definite time, right? It starts from tomorrow and so on and so forth. The thing that you're going to need to do is get your ducks in the water, right? Because you already know what we are looking for. We know you need 3 letters, you need your transcript, you need this, you need that, you need that. Get all those documents. I would say you should have that already before tomorrow. But I know, you don't live in a perfect world, because those things are going to delay your application. And in turn, those things will delay the potential for you to get an interview, right? I have hundreds of applications on my desk. As soon as the thing goes, go, right? These people are ready. They're not joking around. Because not only are you competing against foreign American grads, you're competing against IMGs. They know that it's against them, right? That it's not in your favor. So they're ready. They are OD ready, right? So you can't be like, well, I was waiting for, I'm not sure if I'm going to ask my dean for my letter. No. Now it's not the time to be shy. Now it's the time to go on the offense, not defense. Now it's time to go on the offense. You got to have all your letters. Your statement should be ready. You should be reviewing their statement, having people edit it, having people, give you mock interviews, right? Because whether it's virtual or in person, this is something that can break or make you. You could be excellent on everything, and then you go to the interview and say something foolish. And then as soon as you leave, I'm going to throw your application to the side, right? I'm being honest. So when I see applicants, I want to see if I'm looking at your application and it's not ready, I'm going to the next guy. Right? If I have 300 applications to review, I'm not going to be sitting there. I'm not going to call you on your cell phone. I'm not going to FaceTime you. I'm not going to WhatsApp you. Hey, we're waiting for that, this or that. You have to be your own advocate, and you have to go ready hard, okay? Because you don't want the reason why you didn't get an interview to X, Y, and Z was because they didn't get your application in time. Oh, and send some money, put some money aside, because I think this can be a very expensive venture for medical students.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I was going to add to that. I agree with all those statements. I think in terms of the timeline, and I guess this is more for med students who are getting ready to apply, like everyone said prior to that, by submission day, you want to have all your ducks in a row, and it can be stressful trying to get ahead. But zooming back, for me, because I did SF match, those who apply ophthalmology or urology, the SF match is actually about a month or so earlier. So the timeline that I used within my M3 year was by January, I started just drafting a personal statement. It seems early, but you want to be comfortable with having so many drafts of your personal statement. You don't want to be clinging onto one draft, because you'll have friends, you'll have peers, even my parents read it. And the main thing you want to get a sense of is it you? And it's helpful because the people who know you professionally and know you personally will be able to give you that honest feedback that makes you go back to the drawing board. So get used to being able to like draft through that. On the second hand, getting your CV and personal statement ready. So by the time you ask for letters 4 or 5 months out in advance, and they say yes, you can respond back with a thank you so much. This is my CV and current draft of my personal statement. And that can ease the process of them writing a letter of recommendation. I would also say by this time, now zooming to M4s that have all their ducks in a row and are submitting those letters, a lot of med schools will also have dean's letters, and these will be kind of more comprehensive letters about your performance. And sometimes, you know, you may find that resident or that attendant you didn't gel with, and there may be that comment that you don't like. One thing that helps is maybe talking to that dean or talking to that professor who's going to write that letter and letting them know, okay, I may have had this rough rotation. I don't think this is representative. Will this still go into my dean's letter? So making sure too that that letter will be representative of you. Once you're getting to this point, preparing, well, I guess we'll talk about interviews too, unless you guys want me to go into that process, but that's what I would say in terms of like process of writing, getting your personal statement and the letter of recommendation ready, just getting comfortable with it's gonna be multiple drafts. And then also reading your writing out loud. I use sometimes with the software, I would just highlight all and read it out loud to myself. That's how I caught a lot of grammatical mistakes, a lot of weird things. Forcing yourself to read out loud makes you read it slower. It makes you catch those mistakes.
Excellent statements from everyone sharing about, you know, getting your ducks in order, making sure if you are in for applying this season, making sure that you're ready. Those are very key things that you want to keep in focus for this time of season, because the best people that do get those interviews are the ones that are prepared. So great points, everyone. I guess just to transition on and move on to the next, to segue to the next topic, just specifics with mentioning about personal statements. Dr. Umpanto, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just a slight comment. Before the meeting began, I put a website into the general group chat. I'm sure by now you should all be familiar with that website, right? You should be able to spit it in your sleep. There are so many resources on that AAMC website that you must take advantage of, right? Not only just when should you do this and when you should do that, but also there's a fact, you know, frequently asked questions. You should probably just take a time if you're bored and, you know, instead of being on Instagram, just probably go through that, because you'll probably get a lot of gems on things that you should do and things you should probably not do. All right, so use the ERAS and AAMC, you know, resources available to you, as well as the same goes for EFMGs as well. You know, they have a subsection just for you foreign grads, so use it.
I would like to jump in here. I just don't want to forget my thought, but I did actually go on that site, and there's like a set of example interview questions that I like practiced with a friend. And there was so many interview questions that I got straight from that sheet. I will go back and see if it's still on there, but they literally took all the interview questions from that site. So I know we're jumping ahead, but I have more advice when it comes to the interview process. But pretty much like that sheet, you should probably go over it with like your friends, your colleagues, before you go sit in front of any PD, any chief residents that's going to interview you. So I do agree with what Dr. Mfusa just said.
Just to skip ahead and follow up on that as well. There is this website that I use. It's called biginterviewmedical.com. Your med school might provide it to you. If they don't, you should email them and ask them if they pay for it. But it's an amazing website. Essentially how it works. Oh, perfect. Yes.
I was along the same line. I was just about to say that. You go ahead, Dr. Taylor.
It was amazing. So how the website works is you can actually even pick your specialty. So it picks you, you click your specialty, then it gives a bunch of sample questions in different categories that you might be asked. And then it records you. So why do you want to become a doctor? Or why do you want this specialty? Then you record your answer and then you watch it back. The most cringiest moment you can do is watch back your interview. And that's when you really, really, really see like how good you're doing or how not good you're doing. It was amazing because sometimes if your school doesn't provide it to you, like friends are great, but sometimes like if you just see how you look, you'll know whether or not you want to look like that or not. So it's helpful as well. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent advice. I mean, just to jump ahead, we were talking about interviews, just a segue for preparation. What are the key interviews, questions that we should be paying attention to preparing for that does make a difference in the interview process?
Yeah, so I'll just add briefly to that. I also agree with the big interview, and I agree with recording yourself when answering things because you'll get a sense of your filler words, your mannerisms, especially because I believe interviews will still be virtual. Is that correct? Okay, so the thing about being through the screen is you want to convey your passion or your energy. And one thing I didn't realize is when I was on the interview trail talking about things I was interested in, people got a sense about that. And so it made you realize that people can get a sense if you're not passionate about something, and I'll read even more through the screen. So the questions that I think you should always have ready to answer is why medicine or why X specialty. Usually you want it to be 30 to 45 seconds, not too long, but something that encompasses your journey and has a bow around it. You know, it's helpful. I don't usually like scripting things. I think it's helpful to have bullet points as to, you know, you want to hit, say, maybe a formative event, memory in childhood, a formative event in med school, and a formative event now. Like, have your highlights and then naturally try to weave a narrative, because if you don't want to come off too scripted, and you know, that might come off less authentic. There's a lot of other questions too, and I'm happy to share. I have like a sheet with all the questions that I thought were helpful that I also got from the big interview that we mentioned before. So I'd be happy to share that. But one of the questions that I thought was hardest was actually situational questions. And the ones where I got a lot of faculty members that asked me about a time where I didn't get along with someone, or a time where I had a conflict. And I think a lot of people were trying to get at, especially being in a residency or a smaller program, people want to know, how do you work as a team player and how do you deal with conflict? And me, myself, being a conflict avoidant person, I was kind of taken aback, and I would have to really dig, and people wanted the details. So learning how to tell a story. And again, the big interview has like the STAR method, if anybody remembers this, but it's a way that you tell a story in which you have like the situation, like I'll get the actual acronym, but you want to have an ending to it, like the situation, what happened, what you did, what was the resolution. And so you want to practice just telling stories and hitting those key points. I'll let the group also talk about other questions that they found were kind of to the book.
So in addition to paying attention to the big and obvious questions, right? Why medicine? Why ophthalmology? Why radiology? Why this and that? When I was on the, one thing I used this I was on the admissions committee at University of Miami Med School and New Jersey Robert Wood as well. I always ask something that they least expect, right? Because that asks you to think quick on your feet. And usually most people may not be prepared for that, right? So those situational questions, sure. But things like if there's something that's glaring on your application, be prepared to not defend yourself, explain yourself, and understand how that has made you better. Right? We want to see progress. We want to see someone who's not stuck in their past or some mistake they made and want to move on. Why? Let me tell you this. The reason why program directors do the things that we do, it's not some fancy, you're not applying for a job at the Pentagon, right? You're applying for a job to take care of human beings. And we do know that you are a human being taking care of sick human beings. It means you're not perfect, you're going to make a mistake. So when we're trying to elicit things like, oh, tell me something that you weren't proud of, or how you work with people and this and that, we're trying to see how you're going to be. We're trying to place you in a residency environment and see how you're going to respond when you have a failure, when a patient dies, when you have a misdiagnosis, when you give the wrong medicine or you give the wrong order or whatever. How are you emotionally built when your patient doesn't do well and these things, right? Because we don't want to take on a resident who's going to fall apart in the middle of their program because somebody yelled at them too hard or something like that. Let's say you're doing surgery, right? Same thing in fellowship program. With my fellowship, fellowship is even harder because we're only taking like 4 or 5 people out of like hundreds. So I really want to know if I'm going to like your ass or not. It's quite simple, right? I need to know, are you a good human being at heart? Do you have the passion to take care of a human being? And am I going to like you? Because I'm going to train you for a whole year. And if you're an annoying, lazy person, I need to elicit that in that 15, 30 minutes that I got you, because your application looks stellar. Everybody's application looks stellar, right? By the time I give you an application interview, it's because you're stellar on paper. Now I want to know who you really are, right? So asking you things where you've already prepared 5 years ago about why you went to med school and your mom and your grandpa doesn't tell me much about you. Right. So I might throw you a question like, okay, this patient has COVID and this and that, all these social things that you're not prepared. And I'm going to see how you're going to think quick on your feet and how you're going to respond. That will tell me more about your character and how you're going to deal with difficult situations. So always be prepared. Sure, prepare for the big questions, but be human and think about things that can happen that you're not prepared for. Don't panic. You're not going to know what question the interview is going to ask. You just take your time, take 5, 10 seconds and make you seem thoughtful, like you're thinking about something. You could be thinking about what you ate yesterday. We don't know. But it looks like you're being thoughtful. You're thinking about what I just asked you, and you're going to give me a very deliberate, articulate answer. Right. So prepare for the common, but also the uncommon, unexpected questions.
Just to add to that as well, one of my interview questions, so I'm a person, I do a lot of crafts, I do a lot of DIYs. And one of the questions she asked me, she was like, okay, teach me something. And my mouth dropped. I'm like, what? So yeah, she said, teach her something. So for my backdrop, I had like one of my DIYs in the background. So I just took it off and I taught her how to make this artwork. But that was the one question that really threw, I was not expecting it whatsoever. So it really is important. I feel like the biggest thing is that with these interview questions, like you have to make sure that who you are as a person shines through, not what you think that the interviewers want to see. So for me, when I was prepping for interview questions, things that I printed out my responses, not so I could memorize them and read them out to the interviewer, but just because I'd have them on my desk. So in between breaks and things, I would just look and make sure I'm hitting all my points. So like things, I'm looking at my phone because I have it on my Google Drive, but things that I would do is like at the top, I was like 5 things that I want them to know about me before the end of the interview. So I listed the 5 things about me I wanted them to know. Then I always printed out my tell me about yourself because I'm awkward. And for some reason, it was the hardest question for me. But yeah, so then why did I choose a specialty? I did bullet points, like just talking points that I wanted to hit. I put 3 things that were not on my ERAS application because I did get that question a lot, like just like 3 bullet points of things to remind you. Because when you're in that situation, sometimes like just everything, you almost forget yourself. But like if you just have a piece of paper with the bullet points, it's good to look at while they're playing like the intermission music at the beginning. So yeah, like strengths, bullet points. 3 words people would describe me as, bullet points. Make sure you have your weaknesses, bullet points. And again, like not like full-blown paragraphs because you're not going to have time to quickly skim that in a high stress situation, but just so you remember it. And like, it doesn't have to be that difficult. Some programs will ask you the same question. So just have your routine go-to answers and yeah.
Oh, thank you. These are all very helpful. Just to introduce myself real quick too. My name is Derek. I'm a 5th year at Cleveland Clinic applying neurosurgery. So to kind of keep the theme of our interviews, we just wanted to ask how you would recommend assessing program culture with virtual interviews. I know some programs are keeping virtual interviews this fall. So we just wanted to hear your thoughts on how to assess program culture. And I can start with you, Dr. Amposa.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Derek. So it's a bit tough, right? Especially if you're going to certain residences where you need to be in that environment, right? You need to be in the OR for anesthesia, surgery, neurosurgery. You need to know. So the best thing is, because we all lie, right? Not like lying to say that flagrant lie, but we're lying. I want my program to look amazing, right? So you can be like, oh, I'm definitely going to train with that guy in Jersey, right? Or you want to be like, oh, I want to come across like, oh, Amposa is definitely going to pick me, right? So you want to come across. So programs are not going to tell you all the problems they have, right, with their culture. If there are some issues with gender or there are issues with certain race and this and that. So you got to go digging behind doors, closed doors. Essentially, you can't go and ask the program director, so how come you never had a Black person in 5 years? Like, don't ask me that. Like, you are guaranteed I'm going to throw your application in the garbage. Don't ask me that, right? That's not how you find out how my culture is. Is it conducive to learning, or are they, this and that? No, your best bet is someone who's already been through that program, Derek. So find a neurosurgery resident who's currently there getting their butt smacked and ask them, how is it? I know you're going to get beat up, but am I going to be alive by the time the residency program? Am I going to be PGY-7 or am I going to be in a casket by then? Right? That's how you find out. Talk to people who've been in the program. Talk to people who are in other residencies at the same hospital. They will tell you what's the culture at large. Right? They will tell you. They don't have to be, neurosurgery to tell you, oh man, it sucks being here. They could be in psychiatry and still struggling. If the psychiatrist is struggling, you're definitely going to struggle. Right? So no disrespect to any psych, people here, but what I'm saying is, right, neurosurgery is harder than psych, let's be honest. So if you're struggling in psych because the people are being jerks and they're not teaching and they're being very, then definitely they're going to be very flagrant in something like neurosurgery. Be cautious, right? Programs have reputations just like students and residents have reputations. Believe what people are saying. If a bunch of people are online dogging, watch you or whatever, trust me. You're not Jesus, you're not Moses. You're not going to change it in your term. It's probably, you might be very careful where you go. Why? Because you're going to spend so much time in that hospital in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years that you want to be happy. We don't want to hear another resident committed suicide. We don't want to hear another Ghanaian resident jumped out the window. We want you guys to go out there to be stars and shine. You're the only person that's paying to be there or being paid less to work more as a resident, right? So you want to be happy in those 5, 6 years or whatever you're going to be there. So talk to nurses, ask them, hey, this is something you can ask. Is there a former fellow or resident that you think I could talk to? And see what they say. If they're dodging those questions, they don't want you to talk to anybody, that's probably a huge red flag, right? Because if I'm proud of my program, I'd be like, oh yeah, for sure. You want to talk to Dr. John, you want to talk to Dr. Sandra, you want to talk to these people because I know they're going to speak volumes about our program. Right. But so be careful of like context clues. That's what you're going to get. No program director is going to tell you, yeah, man, in 5 years, we've never had a Black woman. In 5 years, we never had a this or that. But you have to do your homework before you go and then ask them, is it okay if I speak with so and so? Do you have recommending when I speak with this? And that's how I think one way, Derek.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially having done interviews like in the COVID era that was all virtual. Like those one-on-one phone calls with, for me, it was Black residents. That's what gave me the real scoop as to what was going on, because you'll get a sense of residents who, whether or not they enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, they realize that there's nothing to lose by just talking to a med student who's applying and just letting them know what it was. And depending on where they went to med school, you can also get the tea on their home department affiliated with their med school. So in one conversation, I would learn about 2 or 3 programs just like that. And those conversations like change the course of my rank list. Because you'll get the meet and greets and things, and it's kind of like a forum like this, but everyone's talking in a public setting and people are trying to put up a front. So I definitely agree, like those one-on-one phone calls with current past residents really helped. And I would say sometimes with cultures, especially if you're talking to mentors or people, those perceptions of the programs may be, 5+ years asynchronous with what the culture is now. And sometimes it could be a department chair, sometimes it could be one faculty member that could change the whole culture of a department. So it's always helpful to try and get as close as possible, like someone who's been through it within a 2 to 5 year range, because that can also give you a more accurate description of what it's like now.
To add to your comments, one thing I would say is that I agree. The best way is to talking to like other minority residents and getting the tea. That you'll get. If you are unable to do so, or you still like a program that just doesn't have as many minorities, things that I've done in the professional interview, like during the interview, is one, like I pay attention to how I feel during the interview. Do I feel welcome? Do I feel like on edge? as soon as the cameras turn on for no reason? Like, how do the residents interact with each other? I think that's a really, really big one. How they talk to each other. Do they even speak at all? You can see this during their interviews. You can see it at conferences. Like, just watch certain trends. Like, just watch how they speak to each other, depending on what personality. Like, I'm family medicine, you know, like we're very people. So like, are you personable? Like, are we making jokes are you guys like friendly? Are you like loose? Like, is that what's going on during the interview? That's what I was looking for. Obviously, different specialties have different things, but that for family medicine, that was what I was looking for. And then as far as like minorities, there is a New England journal on how residency programs can support minority students. There's like 100 things. So what I did is I asked every program, I was like, oh, so how are you, like, what would you say that you do to support your minority residents? Not that I was expecting a specific answer, but sometimes it's just the way people respond to the question in general. Like, I had no hopes for the question, but like, if you freeze or you get scared, that's a flag for me. It's like, you could easily just say mentorship and call it a day. But like, if you can't even think on your feet with that, then like we might have a bigger problem. And then I had one more, but I can't remember at this time. But yeah.
You know what?
Hello, can I?
Dr. Atkins, is that you?
I think that was Dr. Kuma play.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize.
Pearl.
I'm driving, so I just wanted to say this. Was it Derek that asked the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Derek. So yeah, everything that everybody said. Plus, yes, it's hard to kind of get a feel for the place with this in this virtual world, but a lot of the programs do offer second looks before you submit your ranked list. So what you could do, and you're applying to neurosurgery, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is a very long road to be at a place where you're not happy. So what I would suggest is, after your virtual interviews, you can think of the top 3 and actually request to go there physically, to go see the place, to go see the OR, to get a feel for how, you know, like for me, a lot of it was really what my spirit was telling me when I went to these places is like, you can just feel you belong or you don't. So that would be my suggestion to you is, on top of everything that everybody has said, is to request a second look, to go there physically, to get a feel for the place, the program, because that would definitely help you in making a decision as to where you want to go, especially since your training is so long.
Oh, thank you. That was very helpful. I think
You can
Dr.
also-
Alfonso was going to say something.
Yeah, Derek, you can ask them. You can ask them directly. Are there programs in place to ensure resident wellness? You can ask them that, because that is something actually as program directors, we get dinged on and all these things, especially in times of COVID and with the residents, you know. So ask them, you know, because you can ask them for a second look and go in personally. They can say, oh, because of COVID, we're not allowing that. Then they just shut that door down. It wouldn't hurt to ask. So still go ahead and ask, like Pearl is saying. But, you know, other things you can ask them, what are they doing to ensure that the residents are well? Do the residents hang out? Do they even like each other?
Oh, thanks for keeping it back with us, Dr. Alfonso and all the other panelists. Neurosurgery is actually in person, so they're going to take all my money for me to go visit. But I think Dr. Akins is here, so I just wanted him to introduce himself.
If Dr. Akins cannot mute, I think Dr. Sarpong also just came on as well.
Can the host unmute Dr. Akins?
We can move on to the next question, and when they are ready, they can interrupt.
I have a comment. I remembered what I was going to say. Another thing about culture. One thing I did was I would ask all the residents I interviewed with to describe the program director in 3 words. And I would see. I would ask them and see if there were trends. If there were trends, I would believe it more, but just to kind of get an idea of how they feel about the program director. And you can do that with anything. You can ask them how to describe the culture in 3 words and just see how they all describe it. Because if they're all describing it, oh, and they give like some sugar-coated word for stressful, then you know, there it is, you know? So that's a great way to as well.
Before we move on, just to jump in real quick about what Dr. Taylor just said. So I actually picked my program because of my PD. I went to my camera's off. Sorry, guys. All right. So I went to my program mainly because of my PD, because he actually interviewed me along with 2 other doctors, but I got along with him so well that I knew that if there was an issue, I would be able to go to him and he would help me resolve whatever issue that was. So your interview is very, very important. Like you need to, I don't know, dig to see if you'll get along with these people on like a regular day. Like, would you be okay with going to coffee with them? I really got along with all of my co-residents, but your PD is actually very important. If you don't like your PD, like you're not going to like your program. So it's very important for you guys to definitely ask a lot of questions. I like the wellness thing that Dr. Ampusa said. That was my way of like tricking them to see if they had like diversity programs or like really cared about resident wellness, if that they would pay for us to, I don't know, go to an amusement park during resident wellness week. I was on the wellness committee. So these things are like important to ask because some programs really, you're just a number, they're going to work you to pretty much death. So make sure you ask these like important questions and make sure that like, you get along with the people that you're going to be spending 3 to 7 years with.
Excellent points everybody has shared so far. I know we are getting close to our hour. Just want to ask just a couple more questions before we open the field to any other additional questions here. So I guess to segue to the next point with interviews, I know with a lot of programs this year, they have implemented some type of signaling mechanism for which to help med student applicants to be able to build their list and strategically build where they want to apply to. So just from the panelists, just from your standpoint, if you have any understanding about how to be strategic in applying to the schools that you want to apply to, whether those have to apply broadly, whether those have to apply specifically, and then those that do have signaling, how they should go about using that.
I'm just going to jump in real quick and answer this question because I have a lot to say about this. But, it's honestly, a lot of these things depends on like board scores, your personal statement, your letters of recommendation, but your foot in the door is your score. Okay, so you have to look at your application. I'm sure all of these programs have like an advisor that will advise you based on what specialty you want to go into, if it's really realistic. My advice is always to apply broadly. Don't limit yourself, because what happens with limiting yourself is that you will end up getting maybe 5 to 10 interviews. But the thing with residency is that you want to be comfortable with the interview number. Anywhere between 10 to 12 interviews is a good number. So at least like you'll have like top 5 and you'll know that like you'll match like somewhere in that top 5. So I would apply broadly. I know it's a lot of money. It's cost a lot of money to apply for residency, but set yourself up to succeed. Whereas, you shrink yourself and like not get enough interviews and put yourself in the position that you might have to go into, so that's what I would say.
Sorry, I just checked in late. My surgery went longer than I could. Of course, my name is James Akins, and I am a fellowship director for gynecologic oncology at Rutgers Medical School. What I want to bring up to everyone's attention is that I'm also involved with the residency selection for obs and gynae as well. And over the 30 years I've been doing this work, for starters, a lot of applications ends up on the floor. And is there any secret to that? No. The key is that, certain criteria are used to select people for the interviews. One of them, which is very strongly looked at, is letters of recommendation. You cannot just ask, can you please write me a letter of recommendation? The question or the request should be, can you write me an excellent letter of recommendation? Now you put that word excellent in there, it means you don't want a mediocre, because if I pick an application to review to determine who I'm going to interview, it's all blinded. We don't look at the pictures. So initially, it's blinded interview in the sense that we don't see the pictures. Now the pictures comes up right before the interview time. Then we see the pictures because we want to be as transparent and even-handed as possible. Yes, sometimes when you read somebody's personal statement, you can deduce where they're coming from. True, but I think the key is letters of recommendation. You have to really, because you cannot see it, those letters of recommendation. So you have to ask, can you please write me an excellent letter of recommendation? Now, if the person cannot write you an excellent, they will tell you, but even if they can't, and they say yes, now you put them on the spot. So they cannot give you a mediocre letter, which is key. The second thing is that you got to make sure that at least you've gone through your steps 1 and 2 and you've passed them. That's also required. Even though they tell it's not required, they look at it as a part of cutting the list down. It doesn't factor in the ranking, but it factors in whether you get an interview or not. And then your personal statement is key. What you write is very important. And so make sure that you really craft it very well. And a lot of times, some of us don't really look at it where it's written. It's best if you have a good friend who majored in English or who can write excellent essays. Don't just give it to them to say, look, take your red ink pen, and I want you to really go through this and mark it down, because I want to make sure that whoever reads this, they're going to have me on their interview list. Now, and finally, the other thing that they use as well for the selection for interviews is they're going to look at your grades from medical school. Not necessarily where you went to school, but what kind of grades do you, how well did you do, in school? And finally, have you done any research? Have you published? And last and all is really that they also try to, that they look for is basically, what else did you do in medical school? Or what else did you do in college? Were you just a bookworm? You just sat there and just memorized everything and had all these honors? Or you were out there in the community tutoring high school kids? You were in the community encouraging minority kids to get into health sciences. You are in the community doing all this different community work. Actually, that's a big, big factor. Even better than your grades. So you're looking at somebody who has a couple of honors, but lots of high passes, but they've really put in a lot of community service. They've done some research. Maybe they have their name on 1 or 2 publications. Trust me, you will get an interview. And then at that point, you have to sell yourself. So yeah, that's the pointers that I would like to give you guys. I know that a lot of times applicants don't see how people get selected, but this is what goes on behind the closed doors. And if you don't want your application to end up on the floor, those are the things that you have to make sure that you have.
I agree with Dr. Akins. When you go to ask a person to write you a letter, let's say you did a rotation, you should first of all check yourself in the mirror. Check yourself first before you go. Because if you know you were a terrible student on that rotation, don't come asking me for a letter. Right? Because I've had this happen. Because the patients, I don't know if they ran out of options or they just feel like you're at a program director position or something. So let me go ask that guy. Or sometimes this is what you see. Oh, he's black, I'm black. Let me go ask that guy, No. Make sure you did well, you excelled on that rotation. And then you say, at the end of the rotation, you can ask, how was my performance? And then let them give you a candid evaluation. And if they say, oh man, you were one of the best students I've had so far, aha, then you get them. Okay, I'm applying to anesthesia. Can you please write me an excellent, like Dr. Aiken said, letter of recommendations? If they can't, they'll tell you, and you know, you are all right. You're all right, but I don't think, I've told students, no, I can't write you a letter because I don't think you perform very well on this rotation. You rather that way, you may not like me, but you rather that way than me write a very mediocre 1-paragraph letter that's gonna get tossed away, right? Because you're forcing my hand to write a letter, right? So make sure you know yourself that you did very well, and then ask that person, can they write you a good letter of recommendation?
I really need to jump in here, but I cannot harp enough on how important your letter of recommendation is. On my interviews, there was a lot of times they would say, oh, the person that wrote you this letter was a really good, said really good things about you. That was something that I was impressed about. I asked only people that I knew were going to write excellent letters, were going to tell them all of my good attributes as a medical student. I had friends who just asked anybody, and that actually hurt their application. There's some programs that will actually be kind and will send you a message and say, hey, we want to give you an interview, but there was some discrepancy in this letter. If you could give us some information about that. There was a friend actually who didn't get an interview somewhere because of the person that wrote her letter and what they said about her, during her EM rotation. And I don't know who's applying to EM, but I know you guys, your application is quite complicated with like your, your visiting rotation and all of that. But she did a visiting rotation, and the person that wrote her letter confused her with another student. But my point is, make sure you stand out. You want to stand out. You want to ask somebody that you actually have a good, relationship with, who's going to just explain that, oh, this is a really good student. They'll do really good in your residency program. Your letter of recommendations outside of your board scores can make or break your application. So please don't just ask just anybody to just write a letter for you.
Thank you.
Can I add something here? This is Dr. Kumapli. The other thing that I would like to ask for those applying to multiple specialties, please, for the love of God, do not mix your letter of recommendations, okay? Do not send an internal medicine letter to family medicine. No, they're two different specialties, please. Because that is the quickest way for you to not get an interview when programs get a whiff that you're not applying to the specialty. We understand, sometimes you need backup specialties, et cetera, but make sure that you're sending the correct letter of recommendations to the correct specialty. Okay, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pro. I also just I know we're about to run out of time, but Dr. Ajimang and Dr. Sarpong are also here as well, and I'd love for them to introduce themselves. We're very grateful that you all joined us. And I think Dr. Eno is here as well, if I'm missing anybody.
Chuck, you're gonna
hello. My name is
stand there and look stylish. You knew I was gonna call you out. Derek is applying to neurosurgery. Give him some pointers. This guy is sitting there.
But Derek has already been here, so he understands the hassle. Hello everyone, I'm Kojo. I'm one of the PGY2 neurosurgery residents here at Vanderbilt. I apologize for not making it earlier on. I was in a case that got extended, but I'm here and happy to hear all your thoughts and all your questions that you may have. I know we are probably like left with some few minutes, but yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Ajiman, you were saying something?
And I just wanted to say my name is Francis. I'm also PGY2 psychiatry. So if somebody's interested, just reach out. If whatever support we can help you getting in as well as staying in the process too, because that's a challenge. But I'll leave that for another day. I'm just grateful to be here to just observe and help in any way we can. Thank you.
Excellent. So far, we've heard a wide breadth of advice, really great gems from our panelists. really, really grateful to hear their thoughts of what does it take to get into residency? What are the pertinent things that we need to do, that we need to keep in mind to have a successful interview and also a successful match day. We are running short on time to our hour that we have allocated for this session. We do want to also just extend for those that do have questions that want to stay on to also enter into the chat. We can also fill for those questions for those that if they are residency specific, be sure to just specify as well, and we'll be able to facilitate that. But other than that, we would like to thank you to our panelists for coming on tonight. We do thank you for the time that you've taken from your busy schedules. It's not easy to do, especially with residency being so jam-packed, but we are so grateful that you came on tonight to give your words of wisdom to us.
Guys, I put 2 books in the chat, one by Bill McGowan and one by Dale Carnegie. And I know you guys are very busy, but you're going to be in a career for medicine. You're going to be doing interview after interview after interview, okay? If you get a chance, take a look at those 2 books, and they are going to be very helpful in interacting and interviews and speaking and public speaking and those kind of things. So check them out.
And
the med students are not busy. They'll be fine. They can read it.
Oh, we do want to be respectful towards our panelists' time. So if our panelists have to leave now, we understand, but if anybody else can stay on and answer a few questions. Also, 2 quick things. I added our Instagram page. If y'all could please follow that to have more events, and then also a link for tonight's feedback. Also, I'm so sorry. I want to introduce our president, Dr. Asuming. That's very embarrassing of me. He's been on this call for so long. So sorry. Dr. Asumeng, if you can please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriel. I like for people to feel free to call me by my first name because very soon you'll be attending physicians, and as we grow older, maybe someday I'll be lucky to have you as a family physician or whatever services I may need. So it's okay to call me by my first name. But yeah, thank you all very much for this wonderful event. I think everything that I would say has been shared. Most important thing is applying them, of course, because after all is said and done, this is just information, and if you don't apply them, then it won't translate to much benefit to you as an individual. I would recommend that if anybody wants a second look at their personal statements, please reach out to the student leadership, let them compile a list so that we can work with the students, the residents, and figure out a strategy to get you the needed support. If there's anything else you need us to do to help, we are very, very happy to help. Thanks to all the attendants, thanks to all the residents who made the time to come for tonight. We really, really appreciate your sacrifices. Thank you.
And I just wanted to give just one parting advice for interview season. Have a ritual, whether it's an activity you do, a song you like, to kind of get you in a good state of mind. And one of my mentors actually told me to put a picture up of something that makes you smile. So for me, I had a picture of both of my maternal grandmothers, both born and raised in Ghana, one of which I met at a very young age, one of which I did not meet, both high school educated. And just for me, that always brought back, what would they be thinking to see me now interviewing? So bring it full circle that, we are standing on the shoulders of a lot of people, and it's not easy to get here. So think about, what makes you smile, and just know that this is like kind of a home run for you. So treat it as such.
So if there are not any other last words that people want to share, or any other advice, please forever hold your peace. Other than that, I do want to deem this time and be respectful of everyone's time, that it is 8 o'clock now. I want to thank everybody for coming out for tonight. Thank you for making this program a success. Again, we weren't expecting this turnout, but it's just really great to see that those that are serious about putting their best foot forward for this application season. So I wish everyone here, if you are a 4th year, best of luck for this ERAS season. Please apply the advice that was given today. I know I will be doing that. And also for those that are third years or preparing, please take this advice, keep it to the back of your head, so that way when it's your time, you have that type of success. I would like just to say thank you for everybody. Have a great night and enjoy the rest of your week.
And this session is recorded as well. So if you guys just message the Instagram page, we can find a way to distribute that information. Please, please, please fill out the feedback form so we know how to improve and do things better. Thank you so much, especially to our amazing panelists. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Dr. Alfonso, for keeping it real as always.
My guy kept it real.
Good luck to you all. God bless.
Does anybody know the book that Dr. Ampotsa recommended? I can't see it in the chat. If that can please be reposted.
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie was one of them.
Yeah. And The Perfect Pitch by Bill McGowan.
I just put that in the chat as well.
Yeah.
And thank you to everybody who shared their email. That's awesome. You guys are the best.
I can't promise a speedy reply, but I can promise a reply eventually.
That part.
Hey, sorry, I know the meeting has officially ended, but I was wondering if anyone would like to answer a few silly questions that I have. My name is Comfort, by the way.
Yeah, Comfort, I think your question is very good. I think it's a little tricky. So I did not necessarily have the signaling thing when I was there, but it was just piloting when I was applying. But I think it's a lot of strategy. So I'll give a scenario. Let's say, so I'm from the Midwest, I'm from Chicago, but I've been on the East Coast for a while. And so for me, I applied to West Coast schools, California schools. I have no California ties. The only thing is that my brother's there. But people saw my application and thought, okay, is she really going to come to California? You know, in a scenario in which you really want to go to California, signaling can be in your best interest because you don't have a tie there. You really want to go to this school and you want to let them know that, yes, if I get an interview, I will rank you highly. So that's a situation in which signaling is in your best bet. In another scenario, maybe you are from, say, North Carolina, you've been to schools, other places, and you want to come back home. Sometimes programs will think, okay, she was born and raised here, but does she want to stay here? And they might not know. Then signaling, yes, you may have a tie and maybe you actually don't need to use that signal there. But if you want to guarantee that you're going to land back home, signaling will help. So those are two different scenarios, I would say, signaling, there's strategy in signaling. Another way of almost signaling is also doing an away again, but the risk with an away is that, and I've been told this too, it can be quite not stressful, but it'll be involved because it's like a month-long audition. But if you're able to, you know, have a good impression, meet faculty, meet potential mentors, like that is like the greatest signal you can do. So I would say it's strategy, but it really depends too on what your priorities are. You know, do you want to go back home? Are you not necessarily bound to a place? Is there a program you really want and have no ties to, but you want to let them know that you will go there? And then it's also about, you know, trying to say, should I signal to, say, a reach school or reach program versus mid program versus a program that, say, is very much within your range? And I don't know how many signals there are, but I think the best strategy would be to try and diversify your signals both geographically and based on your own metrics, what you think is a reach versus appropriate versus safety. But I'd say overall, depending on how many signals, you should diversify that.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. Like I'm
hopefully
applying
that
to
helps.
OB/GYN, and then we have like 18 total signals, 3 are gold and like 15 are silver. I'm like, does it kind of matter if you signal a program gold and you signal it or you signal it silver? Do you know?
So silver's referring to like, that's not your top choice, but it's like a choice. Is that what?
Yeah, so like you have 18 total and then 3 is gold and then 15 silver. So I guess like if it's silver, then it means it's not your top 3.
Yeah, so that's almost like it's almost like the rank list when, so in ophthalmology, oftentimes you want to send with to your program that you're ranking 1, I'm ranking you number 1. And I remember someone asked you, oh, what if, can I tell a program that I'm ranking them highly? And the answer is no, because you're basically saying that you're not ranking them number 1. And so like in that rank conversation, sometimes it's not in your interest to let people know that, yes, I'm ranking you highly, but I'm not ranking you number 1. Because sometimes people just care about, are you ranking me number 1? In the signaling, I don't know. I think it's a little too early to tell, but I would definitely use your goal. Well, that's hard. So you have 3 golds. I would figure out what your top choices are within your reach, mid, and not low tier, but something that you think is within your range and diversify that. The silver, I actually don't have a good question for that because I don't know how they're going to read into it. But my
Can I jump
fear,
in real quick with this?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, so like the signaling is a pretty new mechanism that they're doing. I know it's also specialty dependent. I know with me with radiology, there's 12 signals, so there's 6 gold and 6 silver. And then in your case with OB/GYN, they have 18. So I know for me, what I've been doing, I've been going to a lot of open houses and asking the program directors what's their impression or how they're going to be using the signals. From my case with the program directors, they've been telling me that they won't really differentiate it as, oh, he ranked me higher with the gold, so, or this person ranked me higher, ranked me silver, so I'm not going to take them seriously. The sense I've been getting, they've been treating both the whatever it was gold or silver as the same, as something that's just indicating that this person wants to come to my program. So I guess my advice to you, if for your particular program, if they are offering open houses, definitely ask that question to the program directors and the residents that are there, just to get their from their word of mouth, what they're going to prioritize with that.
Thank you so much. Sorry, one last question and I'm done, I promise. I know that one of the physicians mentioned that if we have personal statements and we'd like them to be reviewed, to send it, who do we send a personal statement to?
So if you message the Instagram, we can definitely ask. So the way Gpsf works is that we have a group for med students, we have a group for attendings, we have a group for residents and fellows. So if you guys like ask for the help, we can just send that request to the attendings page or the residents page for whoever can review it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's it.
Are there any other questions that, for the ones that stuck around?
The troopers, we appreciate you.
We appreciate you for staying on. If you do have questions, please feel free. If not, you don't say you don't have to get out of here, but.
Okay. Oh my goodness, I almost didn't stop the recording. That would have been very dumb of me. Let me stop it. Okay.